Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, Monday Night Football Recap Edition. We're also going to talk winners and losers. Dominique Foxworth, screenwriter extraordinaire, is here as always to help me discuss the game. We'll talk about that too.
We'll talk about it, but first we got to acknowledge how you just snapped into game mode right there, and I appreciate it. Nobody else knows, but I know that you just locked the and I love it.
Yeah, game mode is something that I think all America has learned. I get to a little too aggressively
Yes.
because I didn't watch. I was on Family Feud with our friend Pablo, and I haven't watched it. But there are some clips circulating that show how visibly annoyed I was when we were losing. Dominique's seen that side of me a little bit too much. All right, now let's speak in game mode. Let's actually talk about the game. So I want to get to the Falcons very quickly, and I want to start with the Falcon. Well, I want to do the first part of our discussion on the Falcons, the team that won. I'm not trying to overcompensate because of the complaints from Falcons fans that we didn't talk enough, or that it was too Eagles focused, I guess. But I know I genuinely was fascinated by this Kirk Cousins performance. I think it was obviously very needed. But I do want to start this conversation by talking about the end of game, because I feel like, which is both. Let's talk about the Eagles' decision making, and then we'll get to the Kirk drive and everything Kirk related. So, Dominique, 1 minute 46 seconds, 3rd and 3. Nick Sirianni, or Kellen Moore rather, calls a pass. It's wide open. It's an easy pass. Saquon Barkley drops it. They kick the field goal. They were up by 3 points. They kick the field goal to go up 6. And then Kirk Cousins drives the field for a touchdown with the remaining time. By the way, no timeouts.
Right.
So let's start here. Which parts of the Eagles' decision-making did you quibble with? Did you agree with any of it? How did you feel in the moment? How do you feel now with hindsight?
So I felt like I'm in like some sort of bizarre world this morning, because I'm arguing with Jeff Saturday that they should have run the ball. And Jeff's like, I love the pass there. I'm like, you got to run the ball. So like, obviously, if you're going to take the risk to throw the pass, like that's a beautiful play call, the roll pass. It worked early in the game. Great. It's fine. It has to work. And if it doesn't work, then we call, at least for me, you call the decision-making into question, because I would have much rather them run the ball there and then done the roll pass on 4th down, or done the tush push if you got down to like 4th and 1 or something. Like that seems like a reasonable course of action. And they did the two wrong things, because even if you're going to be aggressive and throw there, then keep being aggressive and go for it. And I think that you would have put them in this position. And I assume you understand this as well as anybody, is you would have put them in a position where they have a longer field to go, and they have that tantalizing little tease of tie the game and go to overtime. You put them in a position where they don't want to tie, where they can't tie the game and go to overtime. Right. And it's just, you traded 3 points for what you could have taken off the clock if you ran the ball like 30 to 40 seconds and I guess 25 yards of field position. You traded that for taking it from a 1-possession game to a 1-possession game.
Yeah. What you articulated there is something that I think gets misunderstood when we talk about sometimes 4th down decision making. So, our model, NGS model, had it as a clear go. And it wasn't a clear go just because converting there would end the game, but also what you just described, which is that tantalizing field goal, right? Like, if they had gone for it and failed, which I'll get to, whether or not I think that would have failed, then the Atlanta Falcons, with their quarterback who, is somewhat limited, although at the end he played really well, and I want to talk about that, absolutely would have played for the field goal. But you put them in survival mode, and they're going to go for the touchdown, and they're going to go for the win. And that incentive matters so much, because not only are you controlling the controllables, what you can control, whether or not you can ice the game, you're also strongly manipulating what the other team does with that decision. And sometimes I feel like that gets ignored. I thought for sure 3rd and 3, no timeouts. I'm like, they're running it, and then they're tush pushing it. And maybe if they don't, maybe if they get run and they get stuffed, right? Like, which is, entirely a possibility. I'm sure that's what the Falcons thought they would do. Part of why the pass was so open, obviously. Then, yeah, like you said, the clock's going to stop on downs anyway. So if you want to try the pass there, fine, whatever. They like literally the decisions they made were the exact opposite of that. And you can look at that and say it was an obvious. He should have caught it and it would have been the game. And I'm guessing that's what Jeff said, which is players got to make plays.
Yeah,
totally right. But coaches also have to account for time, situation, and decision making. Like I saw so much bashing of their decision to not take the points earlier. Well, in that case, they took the points, and this is why. When we talk about coaches and in-game management and the influence of analytics, why they should sometimes listen. Like the analytically sound decision, it's not just go for it to be aggressive at all costs. There's many factors and reasons why: time, likelihood of success, and then what we just talked about, which is, okay, what do you want the other team to do?
And it also, like, because the way that we think is a little bit behind, you also get the benefit of being the aggressive coach. It's like the old John Harbaugh trick where he's like, I'm going to ask my players, knowing damn well the player's going to say yes, and knowing that he would not put it on the table if it was not an obvious go for it situation. So it to me doesn't make sense because they have to have the analytics. Like, that's a smart team. They have the analytics. They know the right thing to do. One thing that popped up though, I didn't love the way Nick Sirianni answered the questions afterwards. It felt like he was like pushing Kellen Moore out there, but it made me think that part of this was, I'm sure Nick Sirianni made it clear that they were going to kick it if it was, I'm assuming that he made it clear that if it was third or if it was fourth and anything over 3 or something, they were going to kick it, which is why I'm guessing Kellen Moore threw that pass. And that's the part that I think is interesting, because this whole offseason was a bit about, we got to get Nick Sirianni away from the offensive decision-making. Then get his all the way away from it, please, so we can be congruent. Because it seemed like two different people were thinking at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's what was in Kellen Moore's ear, because, I mean, I hope insofar as, like, it's the only thing that explains it, because you're the Philadelphia Eagles. There is no team in the NFL who is better equipped to set up fourth and short than you. You have been literally, you so much experience in this exact situation. And it's not like they can't do the tush push anymore.
I know, but I the point I'm making is you are so good at this that they had to alter it. Like, this is your thing.
Okay, we'll get to the Eagles side of it in a second. Now let's go back to the Falcons. So Kirk Cousins does drive the length of the field, and you and I talked last week, and they win. Despite Drake London's, man, that would have been an all-timer if the celebration pushing our hero Younghoe Koo was just setting up a Younghoe Koo masterclass. So last week we talked about the Falcons and how predictable they were on run pass splits from the gun and pistol, how they had 0 play action pass attempts. Kirk Cousins did not look, he wasn't under center week 1. The whole football world was befuddled. So their offense coordinator, Zach Robinson, comes out, puts him under center immediately. Under center run, play action pass. Ultimately, they did 27 plays under center, 8 passes, all were play action, mixed in some gun runs too as well. So you definitely saw them try to go outside their comfort level, or to change some of the tendencies we saw in week 1. So before we get to the last drive, I want to know, what did you think during the game, watching Kirk Cousins operate from under center, on the move a little bit, and how did he look throwing the football to you?
What was going on last week? I don't think that he got healthier between last week and this week. I was ready to move on from the Falcons having any real chance. After this offseason, I said they were legitimate contenders because of all the pieces, and I liked their defense, and I thought Kirk was going to be perfect in this with Bijan, and Bijan was incredible in this game. Just a ridiculous athlete. So that's what I was imagining, is they'll get under center, he'll run the ball, Kirk will play action off of it, Drake London will have some big plays, Kyle Pitts will evolve into a matchup problem. These are all the things I saw, and then I saw what I saw last week, and I was like, oh, he can't move. And then we went into, this is why they drafted Michael Penix. Oh, this is over. And then they come out and do all that they did do last week? Were they just playing possum? What? It doesn't make
Well,
sense.
I want to say he still can't really move. Like
Yeah.
he did it. He pulled it off, but there were a few dropbacks where I was like, "Yo!" Where he was handing it off, and you could like see him. Like, did you ever see the movie Wet Hot American Summer?
No.
Okay, there was this. It is such a specific callback, but there's a scene in that where Paul Rudd's character, he plays this like lazy camp counselor, pretends like he can't walk because he doesn't want to work, and he's like kind of slowly. Anyways, that's what Kirk Cousins under center reminded me of. But whatever, it worked. I mean, here's the other thing about play action. We always talk about how the run, do you have to run the ball for play action pass to work? And that's sort of been, or that's been debunked statistically, although I still think the two things are very intertwined in ways that go beyond efficacy. But I think sometimes something is lost in that. The play action pass helps the run. Yeah. Just even having him do it 8 times, and he had a couple of decent plays in it. That first ball, by the way, to Drake London, he put his entire body into it, and it still almost hit the ground. And was it London, I think, who scooped it up on the dig? Mm-hmm. Anyways, because of I really believe that just his willingness, the willingness of the offense to actually let him drop back under center, even a few times. Bijan's under center runs, he was amazing, but nearly 80% of them were into light boxes. He averaged 9.7 yards per carry running under center. Some of that was the style of the Eagles defense. Some of it was the general crappiness of the Eagles defense, for sure. But I do feel like, and I'm not saying that they, they're dropping back because they're afraid of play action, but you just got to make them at least respect that run-pass balance.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be a little bit more hesitant when there's play action. I need to do a broader study on how they count the box, whether you have a box advantage or not, because it felt like there were some. I looked at those numbers also, and that wasn't consistent with what I was seeing in the game. Yeah, it felt like Reed Blankenship was dropping into the box at the snap. And I think that we must, our tracking data must take a picture just pre-snap, because he was in the box. It felt like to me, especially after he was hitting it, that Reed was dropping into the box and it wasn't making a difference. But yeah, that's the point you're making about them being married is incredibly important. And I know the numbers don't always support the link, but I know what it feels like to be like, I don't know. And there's a hesitation.
You just can't entirely like last week, you can't just have it be so predictable to the point where, those edges are triggering, and the Eagles edges were awful in this one, by the way. We'll get to that. So just about Kirk Cousins, though, outside of the alignment stuff. So I mentioned that first pass. I was like, oh, buddy. I think it was actually, it was under center play action. And he was just like, ugh! It was just, but then something funny happened. As the game went on, it felt like he got more and more comfortable. And in fact, in the first half, he was almost the entire passing game was middle of the field, right? Which requires less arm strength than throwing outside the numbers. In fact, the first half, he only completed 1 pass outside the numbers for 1 yard. In the second half, he went 7 for 8 for 88 yards, much of that on the final drive. And Dominique, watching the final drive, I was thinking, and by the way, this also plays into our earlier discussion about incentives. Oh, he's not thinking. He's, and I was thinking, God, coming off of such a brutal Achilles injury, you got to be so dubious about testing your own leg and your ability to, make those difficult throws and plant. And it felt like in the second half, and I'm not saying he was firing missiles or anything, but it felt like he just kind of let go and trusted his ability to, they had 2 corner, I think both to Mooney, or one was to Mooney, one was, but anyways, he hit those 2 corners, and then ultimately the touchdown throw was also an out. And I just thought, oh man, this might actually be a pivotal moment for Kirk Cousins coming back from this injury.
It did feel like he got better as it went along. I was thinking that also. I was also thinking that maybe it's just warming up, because when you have something like that, it's going to be stiffer, but it didn't get great until that last drive. And you're probably right. There's something to be said for being in a new offense and having to think through all the play calls and think through all the reads and decisions that you have to make. That's gone when you're in the 2-minute drill. 2-minute drill is we got 5 plays. We're going to run these 5 plays. These are pretty basic plays that I've run everywhere. And also there's no figuring out what defense they're in. That's the huge advantage about the 2-minute drill is we maybe got 2 or 3 coverages that we can get to. No blitzes because no one's calling it on the field.
Yeah.
And if we're doing anything, it takes so much communication. And we, in that situation, are thinking, don't blow it. So don't try to switch coverages or switch to something else, end up having a blown coverage and gives up a touchdown. Make them execute.
Well, they did not. The Falcons executed. The Eagles certainly allowed them to. I do like your point though a lot about sort of the predictability of the coverages, and again, I think that's also a confidence builder, knowing like, hey, I don't have to throw a missile here. Like I just got to hit my guy and
Right.
trust the concept because they are, trying to, it would be inaccurate to call it prevent, but they were sitting back a little bit. I guess that's my kind of final question about the Falcons offense. Do you feel like this is a real confidence builder? Like, I guess what's your balance between like Bijan looked amazing, Kirk is getting healthier versus, the Eagles defense just might be really bad?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. It might be that one. It might be the second one. And that hurts me because they have good pieces. And I think their secondary, I would like to say their secondary is good. However, they don't have the pass rush. And it feels like maybe their secondary is inconsistent, but they have the bodies back there. Like Quignon's good. Like it's very clear that he's going to be a good corner in this league.
Bijan put him in a blender though.
Oh yeah. I mean, that ain't what we there for. He can cover, right? All right, that's all that matters.
Well, the very next play though, elite cornerback mentality, he almost had the pick six.
He forced Bijan back inside. The tackle was made. He did his job. Quignon ain't out there to blow people up. He did. He was on skates.
It was one of the more comical ankle broken.
It was great. I loved it.
Amazing.
It was funny. Bijan is amazing, and that was it for me. It's just watching this unit and wanting them to be good and expecting them to have figured it out, and just watching them like slowly like survive because they're winning in the red zone, which is not something you could really count on, and then lose because they couldn't hold up in the red zone. Oh, last thing, GJ, like great hit. However, so they can't get pressure. So, and Vix doesn't want to blitz. And so the one time when they do the blitz, you can't give up inside leverage. Yeah, you can't give up inside leverage. And for whatever reason, he gives up inside leverage.
Also, like,
and Mooney's flips into the end zone.
Again, like, especially given the quarterback knowing this is the only part of the field he can throw to right now. You just can't do that. Although I do want one last thought about Kirk before we move sort of to the Eagles defense side of it. I do think I would be encouraged. Yes, the defense made a big difference, no doubt. But I would be encouraged if I'm a Falcons fan because even seeing him get better over the course of the game and grow a little more confident in himself, it seems possible to me that by week 4 or 5, maybe he's not exactly who he was at his peak, but it's certainly going to be a far cry, I think, from what we saw week 1 as this season progresses. Like, he's going to get healthier. The challenge for the Falcons is the other teams in the division are actually good. So you're not running away with it. So this was a very, very important win for them because I think if they had dropped to 0-2, it would have felt pretty Jover, given what the Saints and the Bucs are doing. But meanwhile, the Eagles are 1-1. Their NFC East suddenly looks extremely bad, so it might not matter. Just to hit the defense before we get to the Hurts side of it. I think what I was watching them, Dominique, I was just thinking about this offseason and conversations you and I had and, what happened to the Eagles defense last year, right? Because they had this insane meltdown. And I think what we were trying to parse was how much of it was the coaching versus the personnel. And I think what you're seeing is, it was personnel. Like, this is just not a good defense right now. And, they can't stop the run and they can't rush the passer. And you can't do either of those things. You're pretty compromised. I don't know what the solution is for the pass rush. Some of the run stuff is structural. But the pass rush, it doesn't feel like there's an answer. Somehow the Hassan Reddick trade seems to have blown up in both teams' faces, which the rare lose-lose trade. Because, early on, the Bryce Huff experiment is not going super well. Jalen Carter is has flashes, but he's not the force that you need him to be to hold up this group. And it's a pretty thin group.
And Jordan Davis is not. I mean, I guess we always kind of talked about Jordan Davis as depth. because he didn't play a bunch of snaps in college, but now he's required to be an every down guy almost, and he looks so impactful. I can't miss him on the field, but he doesn't make impactful plays. And yeah, it's tough because I do think that the secondary is talented, and I think they would be fine and maybe even good if they had like legitimate pass rush. And it's not even they don't.
Yeah,
We
I
got so
agree.
accustomed to them having a dominant pass rush and just waves of great pass rushers that now to go from that to just meh. Like they're like 30th in the league, I think, right? Something like that.
In pass rush
And
win.
yeah.
That
And
feels
so
right.
that's you can't play defense like that. You just can't, no matter how good your corners and safeties are, you just can't survive in a league like that.
Offensively, some similarities to week one, to be honest. Still very, very good running the football, yet a refusal to do so in certain moments. No AJ Brown in this one. I was interested in seeing because I figured the Falcons would play a lot of single high against them and to try to stop the run, especially without the fear of AJ Brown on the outside, and they did. And Hurts was okay against it, but just didn't really push the ball downfield on the outside. Didn't push the ball downfield very much altogether. You saw him as a runner a little bit more, which I think is somewhat encouraging if you're an Eagles fan. But man, how do I put this? If I was a fan of the Bears or Texans on Sunday Night Football, watching Sunday Night Football, and then I watched this game, watching Jalen Hurts bail on clean pockets would drive me over the edge. Like I mean, just pristine. I mean, that man is playing a different sport out there behind that offensive line. We were like, oh, what's going to happen with Jason Kelsey? They're fine. The offensive line is unbelievable.
Guess who told you that?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you got it. But there are some plays where I swear to God, he was just bailing to his right with.
Yeah.
I just can't explain it. It was driving me insane during the game.
In his defense, I think from my extensive head coaching experience as a flag football coach, I do tell my quarterback sometimes, so there's no Russian flag football. I'm sorry for this detour. I'm half joking, but also serious.
No, I want to hear this.
When you move the point, it changes your angles and it does make it creates an opportunity for people to get open. So like my joking about flag football aside, it's a true point. So I'm not advocating for bailing on a clean pocket, but I do know when he gets out of the pocket, there are adjustments that are made. And we kept seeing Jesse Bates coming up and getting Jesse Bates out of coverage. The bad part was no one will be mad at you for bailing on clean pockets if you converted these. Yeah. He was bailing on clean pockets and not converting them. So like, I hate bailing on clean pockets, but I understand that if I move the throw spot, it changes the angles of thing and it causes a reaction from the linebackers.
Yeah, he made like a couple of good throw, one really good throw, I think, to Devontae Smith when he bailed, but for the most part, it wasn't helpful. And I think with him too, with his mobility right now or the state of it, it's not like, I don't know, if Kyler Murray bails, he can turn the corner, right? And there's like an elusiveness. Hurts he can still run, and you certainly saw that in this game, but it's much more like he's like, physical downhill type runner. He's not elusive in the same way. So I was like, step up.
If Lamar Jackson is like a receiver with the ball in his hands, Jalen Hurts is like a tight end. It's it's all right. I could do this, but that ain't really what I'm here for. And so, when he gets out there, it's not quite as scary.
It's hard. I mean, given the results and the lack of points, I do feel like the Falcons defense deserves some credit. And, their pass rush made a few plays. Judon did. Ultimately, that final interception was on one of the few blitzes in the game. Or actually, Raheem Morris called up a few 5-man pressures. That's what happened there. Caden Ellis came around. He was lined up inside and came around and got Hurts and forced the pick. I was a little surprised they didn't zero him more. It's what I would do. But again, it's hard to quibble with given the results.
Yeah, it seemed like they had no real fear of Jalen Hurts picking them apart. They were like inviting him to try to pick apart this defense. And I'm assuming that was their game plan, was like, we're going to make him consistently make accurate throws. And he wasn't even throwing it that much. Like, he was making them pay by running the ball. So, yeah, it worked.
I want to close on a positive note, because I do feel like somehow I tried to be positive about Kirk Cousins, and I do think it is positive for Falcons fans, and it was an amazing win, by the way. I mean, a lot of people made this joke that they reverse Falconed, right? Because the win probability went whoop. So good for you guys. And I am more optimistic about this offense. Like I said, I think as the season goes on, too, they're going to get better and better. Eagles, I have some concerns. I think we've laid them out. But the positive thing I want to end on, Jesse Bates. What a player.
Yeah, he's so
How
good.
many guys in the NFL are like true center fielders the way he is, where they play the post and have that kind of range out of a cover 3 structure?
Jeez.
The Earl Thomas role.
Yeah. That's the first name that came to my mind. Earl Thomas, Ed Reed, these are people, but I'm trying to think of somebody in the league that covers the field like that. And I don't know that I can think of. Yeah. I'm having a hard time putting somebody in there, because everybody else is like, all the other good safeties are good for different reasons. I was thinking Poyer, but no, not even. Oh, I guess it's Miami.
Javon
Holland.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Right,
yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking. That's why Poyer came up.
Yeah.
The Dolphins popped in my head.
Good player. He's a very good player, but I think Jesse Bates right now.
Oh yeah. I just you challenged me, so I had to find somebody. I would not say that he is the same, but that's about as close as you can get.
I just love his game. And it was cool that he closed it out. Not cool if you're an Eagles fan. We're gonna talk in depth. The Eagles have the Saints. This is coming week. That's right, Eagles Saints. That is a big one. For just let me see. It's actually they are playing the Saints next week, right? Sorry, I don't have working internet in here.
I don't know. I'm not at my next week yet. I'm still on last week.
All right. Yes, Eagles Saints. Yes, September 22nd. All right. Let's take a quick break, come back, and pick some winners and losers for the week. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. All right, I mentioned the Saints. They're my winner. How about the Saints? I'm going to just start here. I don't think I was more wrong about any team through week 2, very early, than the New Orleans Saints. Where are you at?
No, I'm with you. Like I think I might have said on this show, or it was my show when you were on it, I know I was talking to you, that the Saints were about to get dominated by the Cowboys. Like I expected this to be a good matchup in the Cowboys' favor. So I was even more wronger than you were wrong.
It's the story is the offense, because the defense has been good for like 5 years. I thought that last year they fell off a little bit, and they're certainly benefiting from the fact that the offense is like putting up points. We did a graphic on NFL Live yesterday of like the most points scored through the first 2 games, and one of them was like a team with an old timey game name, like the East Bay Pocket Holders or something. And it's like whenever you got an old timey name on the graphic, you're in rarefied air. It's been a joy to watch. It's been, they're playing the hit. I mean, it's so Clint Kubiak, son of Gary Kubiak, Shanahan tree offense. It's nothing crazy, man. It's just, I mean, it's not, when I say it's nothing crazy, it is crazy given how different they were last season, but it's a very, very successful thus far outside zone running game led by Alvin Kamara, offensive line blocking their off. Extremely aggressive play action passing attack built off of that. A ton of motion and good motion, useful motion. I think about like a lot of the big plays you've seen when you watch the big screened Kamara, for example. You can see how motion is displacing defenders. It feels very coherent. And what strikes me, Dominique, watching this is, oh yeah, like they should have been doing this the entire time, because it perfectly caters to the skills of your players. You have an unbelievably fast group of receivers, which gets kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
But like Shaheed and Olave, they're not hill and waddle, but they're pretty damn fast. So of course, if you play like these ultra condensed formations and you give them room and you compromise DBs and you use motion, right? Like that's gonna help them. And then you have a quarterback in Derek Carr who, when he's kept clean, has always been good throwing the ball downfield. So yeah, like it makes sense.
And it doesn't stop there. You have incredibly like sharp cutting, explosive running back. I don't know how he became so ageless, but he's ageless now. And that's the style that works for him. Nice cut, who also has the ability to cut back. That's one of the things about the outside zone is it forces you to be disciplined. It challenges every single gap. And the last thing about this that I assume that was in your mind when you were saying that your players are suited for this is the weakness in your offensive line is the tackles, or at least the perceived.
You thought
weakness.
It was, yeah,
right. The perceived weakness in your offensive line was the tackles, and that takes a lot of pressure off of the tackles. Those type of play action plays takes pressure off the tackles, and it requires the interior guys. Like the interior guys, I know it's an outside zone, but the interior guys are really important to the outside zone and the play action. So yeah, it's obvious. And it's like Clint Kubiak or his dad was offensive coordinator in Denver when I was there. And that's all we did with Jake Plummer, was that sort of stuff. And
run the damn ball.
Sorry to get rambling, but the thing that I remember when I was there late in their career after the 2 Super Bowls. So the rest of the league had started, like other people had started running the outside zone. He had disciples elsewhere by now. And when we would prepare for those teams, Coach Shanahan would tell us the most important thing was setting the edges, is that you have to, when they run outside zone away from you, someone has to be on the back end, taking away the cutback. And the sooner you can stop the motion of the line, so that end man has to be firm. And they were not firm in either spot.
So if I had, first, by the way, I want to give a little bit of a shout out and credit. Marshall Newhouse, who is a former NFL offensive lineman, came on my podcast this summer and we did an X Factors NFC pod. And he was like, Clint Kubiak is going to help these offensive tackles. And I was like, shut up. I don't think I was that dismissive, but I was like,
makes for a better story.
Well, I was very, because I expressed a lot of trepidation about the tackles pending and a rookie in Fuanga. He was like, no. He's like, I'm telling you, this scheme is like the best possible thing that's happening to that room. So he called it. If I had to express like one bit of skepticism, it's the Panthers, who are god awful. And then I do think the Cowboys defense is particularly susceptible to this type of offense. Right. That said, it won't be a problem against Philadelphia, I don't think. It'll be interesting to me to see when they actually run into a good run defense. Yeah. Like, I don't know. The Bucks are better.
Yeah. That's fair skepticism. The pushback on that skepticism is they didn't just barely run the ball.
I know.
Like, okay, cool, maybe they'll play someone better that'll hold them to a respectable, 50 yards before contact. They ran for 130 before contact. Like, that's...
They got that fullback on the field all the time. Adam Prentice, whose existence I was not aware of before the season began. He is on the field. They're using 21 personnel, third highest rate right now in football, behind San Francisco and Miami, teams that we associate with that. They are running the damn ball. And by the way, it's Derek Carr. It's actually more than scheme, right? Like that. Yeah. The post to Shaheed with pressure on his face.
Who was that?
I gasped. Not just the fact.
It's the pressure. It's
not just the fact that he had pressure on his face, not just the throw, but the mentality. I was like, did Jameis Winston leave town and leave like his brain to put in your body? Because the audacity. Yes. No one throws that ball. Dominique, can you explain why nobody throws that ball?
Well, one, because there's a man who's about to kill you right there, and they have 2 safeties back there who are waiting for it. And there's really like, he didn't have them beat. He anticipated. He didn't have them beat when he threw it.
He releases that ball,
he threw it in a spot, which is, once it hits, then it's like, oh, that was going to be either incomplete or caught by Shaheed. But you don't know that when you're letting it go with somebody in your lap. The most shocking part to me was I saw the play. All right, great play. When they show the replay, you show how close the D lineman was to him with no one on him. And that is like Carr? That guy, that guy is the check down guy is checking it down, especially that's the book on him. It's like you get some heat on him. He just did the exact opposite. It's trust
Maybe he's a new man. Maybe he's in like the YOLO phase of his career. I love possible, it. I hope it continues. I love this story. I think it's so fun. I love Saints fans, so I'm happy for you. I also really love your winner. I like this story a lot early in the season.
Before I get to my winner, I was thinking about like how when my grandmother got old, she was really in the I don't give a I say and do whatever I want phase of her life. So maybe there's a thing about
it's like
quarterbacks.
He's Bullworth, but like instead of cussing and speaking the truth, he's just throwing bombs out there.
All right. My winner, Kyler Murray, the only other quarterback. Yeah, only other quarterback who had a week close to Carr. So he did everything, man. It was all in a week where people are talking about how some people may not be big enough to play quarterback. Kyler Murray sure did everything that you want him to do, from in the pocket, from structure, creating plays on his own when the original play is not there. And I don't know how many completions he had in a row, but it felt like when I was rewatching that game, like I don't remember any balls hitting the ground. I think like in the first series, I think he had like one incompletion. That's the only one I remembered. And he was done before the game was over. He was on the sideline making jokes.
When it doesn't matter if you're short, if you have an arm touched by God, that's when it doesn't matter. Because we're going to talk about Bryce. We're going to get to the other little fella in a second. But exactly. You have to have plus traits, and Kyler reminded the world that he has those in spades. I mean, some of those deep balls were just so beautiful, thrown with such touch. And I think what I love is you saw like the vision of this offense that you kind of got a glimpse of last year, which is like last year, second half, he comes back, he's up and down, but you see, this offense is going to come out, they're going to put a bunch of tight ends on the field, and they're going to run it down people's throats. And if you have a quarterback who can punish defenses for playing that aggressively, you could really get cooking. And that's what we saw this week. In fact, all of the deep plays, I believe, they were in 13 personnel. And every pass, the Rams were in their base defense, meaning 3 linebackers on the field, because they were struggling to stop the run. And Kyler punished the hell out of them. Marv.
That's why having him, he actually had one pass that he underthrew Marv by quite a bit after the play broke down. He scrambled to the left, but it seemed like at that point, he just like, all right, just make sure we catch this. But yeah, when that one receiver out there is Marvin Harrison, it's pretty nice luxury to have. And he was, I did a little dots tape for my podcast last week after Marv had a rough start. It was like, hey guys, they were doubling him. Relax. They were doubling him. And the Cardinals were not expecting this. I saw the routes that they were running. And then they went out there and did the exact routes that I was like, you know what? If they're doubling, do some deep cross fields, that sort of stuff. They did those. And it was bombs.
Why were they not expecting that, by the way? You only have one real pass catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
he was literally the most double-teamed like college player of all time.
Right. I guess that they assumed that he had to have some production before people would double him, but you could tell that they were running routes in that first game that should have been open for Marvin Harrison, but they weren't routes that were anticipating that he would get double covered. And then this week, they're like, all right, you're going to double cover. We're going to run a speedo. We're going to run deep overs. And then they would scramble and crush him. It was impressive.
I love that they're already at the point, though, where like he doesn't have to be open, you know?
Yep. Trust.
That's like, I was like, the sooner they can get to that level, the more screwed the rest of the league is. So.
Yeah, that post in the end zone,
I love it.
Stupid.
You know, I'm a Kyler fan, and I've been
Kyler's a Mina fan.
Excited to see it this year. Okay, back to, I didn't mean to be diminishing. I was about to say diminutive.
You didn't mean to be diminishing to the diminutive.
All right, my
almost
loser
got it out.
is Bryce Young. So, in case you've been living under a rock, Carolina Panthers shocked the world on Monday when Dave Canales, their head coach, announced that he was benching Bryce Young, who was the first overall pick a year ago. As Adam Schefter pointed out, this was the earliest a 1-1 has ever been benched, although recent years, we have seen teams move on from early first-round quarterbacks a lot faster than they did in the past. Famously, the guy who Kyler Murray replaced, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields. Well, that one actually took some time, sorry, but Pickett was pretty fast too. Yeah. So,
well, he wasn't 1-1 though, so it was a little bit different.
The 1-1 aspect of this is
nuts.
Now you got a 1-1 who's balling in Tampa, who's also kind of short, and there's definitely examples around the league of guys who have rebuilt their careers, but this is a unique situation. So I want to just address the Panthers side of it before we get to like what might happen for Bryce Young. Dominique, did you agree with this decision?
Yeah, man. Yeah. There's nothing to be gained from this, having him out there. I mean, all the stakeholders, if you're the decision maker, all the stakeholders that you have to worry about are like the guys on the team, well, the player himself, the guys on the team, the fans to some extent. Like those are the major groups that you're concerned about. No one in that group would benefit from him going back out there again. There's no reason to believe that it's going to get better. He needs a break from it. The guys on the team probably need some belief that you are trying to do the best you can to win, and the fans are sick too.
Yeah, I think what really jumped out to me was when I saw the clip of Adam Thielen freaking out at him. Yeah. He was open, and I think that's sort of the big, like, it's the old, like, you're going to lose a locker room if you don't make a change thing. Yeah, I mean, Bryce, I think what really struck me watching him through 2 weeks, Dominique, is he's worse than he was last year. And I think that's if there was at least some, even if he wasn't great, if you at least saw some flashes of development, there's no way they make this decision. But it felt like he actually went in reverse with better pass protection and maybe not the best weapons, but his circumstances have improved in some ways. And I didn't seem like it was going to get any better. I also think Panthers, like, your team is in a total rebuild. You have to figure out who your guys are. Is it Xavier Legette? Yeah. Is it Jonathan Brooks when he plays? Do we have any defensive players you feel good about? And you just can't do that if you have a non-functional quarterback situation. So I too thought it was a good decision. They're obviously in a very horrible spot now. They're probably going to have the first overall pick the way things are trended in a quarterback draft that people aren't excited about, but I'll put a pin in that because a lot of ball game left there for the college guys. As far as Bryce goes, let me just kind of position it this way. Do you think that it would be beneficial for him to be traded in season this year? Do you think there's any path back for him to get a shot somewhere else as a starter in the long term?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think there's, whether it's in season, I guess the problem with right now is I don't know who will want him. Is no one's looking for, I feel like most teams aren't looking for developmental quarterbacks at this point. Yeah. That's what he would be. So I think maybe this offseason, or maybe someone, I was going to say someone gets desperate, but he's not the player that any desperate team would want. I can't imagine, like, you could think Miami is a team that might be in the market for a quarterback. I don't think they would want him, although that might be a better spot for him because I think that when you got to have a superpower, and his superpower, I think, is his ability to process. And when you don't have protection or weapons, which for most of his career, or a consistent system, which he hasn't had any of those things for his career, it's hard to allow that to work. Whereas if you're Cam Newton or you're Josh Allen and you don't have those, like, your superpower is your freakish athleticism, or Anthony Richardson, who we're going to talk about at some point, like, or even if it's your accuracy or arm strength, like Drew Brees, and like his arm isn't like crazy, let's get excited for it. His athleticism isn't crazy, let's get excited for it. So like what he does best is process and kind of point guard, which is why he was great at Alabama and why he's struggling now.
Yeah, I think Miami is certainly the best case outcome for him. I don't know if they would do it. You certainly haven't seen anything to make you think it would work, but if they do actually feel like he's a better option than Skylar Thompson, or sounds like Ryan Tannehill's, I read he's holding out.
They got Snoop too, right?
Oh yeah, I saw the sign Tyler. I did. I didn't even know he was available. I guess he was with the Browns. So
No, he was
that's
the Ravens that put him on the practice squad. They took him, I think,
they
right?
took him back or
I
something.
think they took him back, yeah.
It's not great. Yeah, tough, really sad story. I mean, I sound like I'm talking about like bird flu or something. It's a bummer. Like I think that the reason you're hearing the tone that people are talking about with it is he's so likable and like and you know, a lot of us, myself included, thought he would have success in the league. I didn't think, you know, I wasn't like, oh, he's the I mean, it's looking like I'm more wrong about Caleb Williams than I was about Bryce Young, but I'm waiting on that one, obviously.
Waiting on that.
But it's a bummer. Okay, well, let's real quickly, your final loser before we wrap. What is it?
Colts. They were supposed to have an easy win against Malik Willis, and we all saw Anthony Richardson do really incredible things with the football last week, and assumed that he would continue to do that against a Packers defense that's not overly impressive, and they would get an easy win against Malik Willis and the center who throws up on the football, but they couldn't. And all the things that you worry about for Anthony Richardson were the problems. It was just like inaccuracy, decision making, and all the reasons why him being Josh Allen 2.0 or better as far as physicality is concerned. It's the reason why he is not, or why he can't be that, is because these issues are rearing their ugly head. And even with Josh Allen at his worst early in his career, I feel like, well, I guess maybe not, but there were more payoffs. Even though there was a lot more bad for Josh Allen back then, there was still more consistent payoff. And so Anthony Richardson, very, very young as far as his experience, so it's not over for him. But this, to me, was like, this was the game where he was going to be like, put it all together and dominate this team.
Yeah, the thing about being overly reliant on explosives, if you don't hit the explosives, you don't have a lot else in the ball. You're just not moving them. I mean, I did think, I was surprised they didn't lean more into the run. His receivers let him down a couple of times, but make no mistake, he was not good in this game. But man, the other thing is like this Colts run defense. Matt LaFleur was super creative, and I talked about this on NFL Live yesterday. I think he's such a good coach, man. Like, how often have you seen head coaches in the NFL, college, when they're forced to lean on, you know, even backups who have been around in their team longer than Malik Willis are like, all right, we're just gonna run the ball, and we're just gonna run the ball, and oh boy, we're getting 2 yards of carry because they know we're gonna run the ball, and that sucks. But hey, who can blame me? I don't know. And LaFleur said, no, I am going to throw the kitchen sink at you. I am going to call every run. I'm going to, you know, and like it was awesome. And he outcoached Gus Bradley. So I don't mean to put it entirely, but I think the reason you're concerned is not just the coaching discrepancy, but now that's 2 games where they got ran through like crazy. And in this one, the lack of a threat of the pass game makes that even more damning.
I mean, Latu is out, but he's not necessarily a run stuffer. But I mean, DeForest Buckner is one of the best defensive tackles in football, and he's not there. But they are. I mean, they just. We talked about this a lot early in the season because, to me at least, if you think of like the foundations of offense and defense, there are one thing on either side that you can't survive without doing, and if you can't block on offense, you can't win. If you can't tackle. I guess you can't stop the run, but also just tackle on defense, then I don't give a damn about your scheme. These are like the non-negotiables of football, and they're having a problem with one of them.
Hopefully they can turn things around. We're certainly not calling it for Richardson. It's just a tough outing, but there's a lot of work to be done there. And we'll see I cannot wait to preview this Saints-Eagles game. That's going to be really interesting. All right. Well, I'll be back later in the week with Ben Solak to do just that. Dominique Foxworth, you can check out, of course, on the Dominique Foxworth Show. But also, I would like to direct you guys to the TV show. Yes, a scripted television show that he wrote for that is premiering tonight on FX at 10 p.m., which as the mother of a 1-year-old, is now when I go to bed. But I will DVR it in support of my guy.
You also got Hulu if you don't want to DVR it.
Okay, there you go. What is the exact title?
It's American Sports Story. Hernandez, American Sports Story. Yeah.
I'm pumped. I can't wait to watch it.
I'm excited. I'm pretty proud. It's been fun. We'll see how it goes. You have to lie to me, so we'll see.
Well, the thing is, I need to find out which episode is your main episode.
Well, that's the thing. I've talked about this. It's like the way that it works in the writer's room is like I technically physically wrote one episode, but like we work together and like build out the structure of every episode. So like I've just as much influence in.
Fair enough, but I am going to be like, this is clearly the best episode. Check that out, guys. Otherwise, I will be back later in the week to preview the entire slate of games. You can check this out on YouTube if you're listening to audio form, youtube.com/@meetingtimes.